I make my living delivering ice to bars that open too early and close too late. In August 2023, I picked up an extra shift in Astoria. The early bird sprained his ankle playing softball. The refrigerated van had peeling paint and a compressor that buzzed like a giant insect. My route crossed US 101 and the Astoria-Megler Bridge to the Washington side. Third trip of the night. Light rain, crosswinds, light traffic. The problem there is the wind. Halfway across the bridge, when you pass over the canal, the tires feel light for 2 seconds. The wipers screeched in 2 tones, and I held on to 80 per hour because ice doesn't wait, and bar managers don't forgive. The city slept with yellow lights reflecting off the houses. The anchored boats trembled like antennas. On the lower stretch, before the arched climb, I saw the emergency phone totem, a blue column with a flashing LED. The phone began to ring. It wasn't a modern ringtone. It was a muffled bell that pierced the windshield, the engine, and the rain. I slowed down and pulled over with my turn signals on. I opened the van door. The ringing muffled the sound of the compressor. The column had a half-open hatch. I pressed the button. The ringing stopped, and only the static of a poorly tuned radio came. Inside the hatch was a cold, soggy manila envelope. I opened it. Polaroids, 6, maybe 7, still damp, all from the same angle. The high arch of the bridge, the empty deck, the river like dark skin. No cars in the images, not even mine. On the back of one, a red stamp with the date of that morning and a time 5 minutes ahead of my watch. I reflexively saved the photos. One slipped, fell onto the asphalt, the rain bursting into micro craters on the varnish. I bent down to pick it up and heard another sound. An engine idling, no headlights. An old boxy sedan had pulled up to my bumper, tinted windows. The driver's door opened a hand's width and closed. No one got out. I returned to the cab. The compressor roared. The community radio played mournful folk music. I put it in gear. When I took my foot off, the sedan clunked even tighter. I pulled into the lane thinking he'd fall behind. He didn't. He plowed into my rear end like a hunting dog, always in the dark. I called 911 on speakerphone and explained, ringing phone, envelope, strange photos, pursuit. The dispatcher told me to stay the course and alerted the patrol. The sedan pulled up on the right. The window rolled down halfway. The interior seemed darker than usual, as if there were a curtain inside. A short arm emerged with something white, not a gun, a Polaroid, and waved it twice. Then the car surged forward, 3 bumper lengths from my bumper, still without turning on anything. The top of the bridge approached. There the deck narrows, and there's a narrow access point with a maintenance-only sign. The chain that usually closes the entrance was down. The sedan, mockingly, turned on its invisible turn signal and dove in like someone who knows their way around the yard. The rear wheels bounced on the drainage ditch, and within seconds, only a flash of tail lights remained on the technical walkway. I didn't follow. I crossed the archway with my hands glued to the steering wheel and my tongue dry. On the other side, under the Welcome to Washington signs, a patrol car waited with discreet lights. I pulled over at a birdwatching spot and got out with my hands open. The officer, Washington State Patrol in a rubber raincoat, listened halfway, asked for my documents, and went through the protocol. Vehicle color, distance, if I'd been drinking. I told him about the phone, the envelope, the stamped photos, the maintenance access. He wrote it down slowly and said, "The cameras in the central section have blind spots above 20 knots. It's like that today. Without headlights, you might not even see it." He handed back the papers and advised caution. He didn't seem inclined to chase anyone in that wind. I went back to making deliveries. 3 stops, Salty Lantern, Whale's Spine, and Red Cedar. The rain eased on the Washington side. Motels were shrouded in mist. At the first bar, the manager simply asked if I could bring more ice for a birthday. As I was filling out the receipt, I saw something taped to the clipboard. Another Polaroid of the arch, an empty tray, the varnish still soft. I asked who had touched my things. Shoulders hunched. The manager's wife said she'd seen a car with almost no noise stop for a second and then back out in the dark. At the second bar, I showed the photos to a local customer. He smelled fisherman's mania and said, "Fresh chemical, real Polaroid." He said teenagers were filming pranks on drivers. I wanted to believe him. Hard. The return to Astoria happened with the sun breaking through a cloud cover. The emergency phone was there, harmless. The hatch closed, the chain back in place. I didn't stop. I went straight to the depot, returned the van, and climbed in with the Polaroids dripping on the hood. The owner, short veteran, looked at the photos and asked if I wanted to switch to the afternoon shift. Less wind. I laughed awkwardly. At home, I spread the photos out on the kitchen table and noticed a detail I'd missed. In the lower right corner of one, a tiny reflection. 2 white rectangles side by side like ribbons or teeth. I ran my finger over them, thinking it was dirt. The varnish still looked smooth. I put everything in a drawer with old tickets. The next day I went back to delivering ice. I stopped answering emergency phones. On the bridge I keep my eyes straight and let the wind smell me for those 2 seconds. If someone rings a metal bell in the rain, I turn up the radio. When I tell the story at the counter, everyone decides for me: channel filming, prank, maintenance test. My favorite version is the silly one. A photographer obsessed with empty space, shorted headlights, mistaken identity, and a fallen chain. I know it's a lie, but it lets me sleep. What keeps me awake is the sound of the phone. Sometimes when the compressor engages, I swear I hear the same bell. Then for a moment, all the ice in the world seems like nothing. The New Mexico Plateau is a different kind of silence. Not the emptiness of pine highways, but a mineral silence, stone and light. I worked maintaining cell towers and repeaters, ant labor nobody sees, essential when everything drops during a cold front. Almost 9 years alone, high pickup, VHF radio, tools in a chest I bolted in myself. Foolish pride? Maybe. You learn to carry weight on the right shoulder, to sleep with wind shaking the frame, to fix things without signal and without an audience. You learn, most of all, to notice when the environment changes its mood. I left Socorro early, US 60 westbound, and took the service road before Magdalena. October, first cold front after a hot fall. A serrated cloud line on the horizon, thin north wind slipping through gaps, the dry smell of crushed sage. The company map flagged a sector with power oscillation at a tower about 12 kilometers uphill. Nothing heroic, swap module, check grounding, test panel. I drove past the old water tank, the empty corral, eased over the first cattle guard so the instruments wouldn't rattle, and kept on. Ravens crossed low like someone had strung the sky on wires. A little after noon, the light turned milky gray. I shifted into 444 over a stretch of cold sand and took it slow. The service road dropped into a dry arroyo and climbed again in a switchback I knew by heart. At the top of the first ramp, the dash radio crackled and my handheld started blinking. I thought, static interference carried by the wind. Then I heard it. 3 short beeps, 1 long, an improvised alert pattern. I lifted my head on instinct, and that's when I saw it. The drone came down from the right, riding the wind, hovering less than 2 meters from my windshield. Small, but with improvised LEDs on the landing gear, help blinking in white. It tilted its body like pointing, insistent, and climbed a little as if saying, "Come." I didn't stop. I tapped the horn lightly, just to test the reaction. The drone backed a few inches, then went back to pointing south off the service road toward a ravine. I kept gear engaged and foot on the brake, because in that same direction there was a different kind of shine on the slope, not rock, glass. From my position I could see half the valley. About 600 meters diagonal, a dark vehicle body looked rolled over near the sandy wash. Not exactly rolled, it was on its side, propped on a pile of old tires. A reflective triangle stood nearby, and yellow tape hung from a branch like a staged manual. Only there were no skid marks in the sand, no trail showing it had come down. And even from a distance you could see, too clean for the place, too intact. My stomach gave that old warning, the one without words. Instead of following the drone's suggestion, I parked the truck sideways, left wheel closer to the road edge, nose pointed uphill. I left it in reverse and pulled the brake. Slipped the rubber pedal covers off my boots. I do that when I need to feel weight and vibration straight through the sole. Took the binoculars from the glove box, elbows braced on the wheel. The SUV in profile looked like a mold. Rear door oddly smooth, no hinges. No fluid stains underneath. Windows too black for tint that had faced sun and dust, and there was shadow where there shouldn't be, under the engine bay. The drone hovered again, now higher, as if it understood I hadn't seen. I flashed headlights twice. It answered with the help blinking faster, almost irritated. On the opposite bank, higher up, something sharp flashed and vanished. Lens, glasses, scope. You don't understand. You just feel you've been measured. My hand went straight to the emergency tray behind the seat. I pulled a magnesium-based smoke flare, the orange one, rolled down the window, lit it with the windproof match, the dry crack, and threw the canister toward the Arroyo in a high arc. First second, nothing. Second, the drone shot up like a startled bird and jerked back, as if someone yanked the controls in a rush. The smoke opened like an umbrella. And then, left side above the SUV, a figure ducked too fast, and the slope glinted again in two different spots. Two people, not one. Negative, I said aloud, to myself and the cab. Unlocked. I dropped the brake, let gravity give me a meter of roll, and pressed gently. The truck slid 2 meters and swung the nose without skidding. The drone dropped lower, trying to block my view, and I answered with a blast from the washer full of soap. Splashed half its rotors. It wobbled, recovered, and climbed out of the spray. I don't argue with battery toys when someone up there is flying them. I swung toward the cattle guard, used the differential's weight, and climbed back to the ridge without looking twice. At the high plateau, I breathed, slotted into second gear low, and drove steady without panic, just emphasis. Faked distraction, left blinker on at the next junction as if I'd turned but kept straight. Near the old water tank, I cut through a shortcut, only visible when the sun hits right. At the company mileage marker, I parked behind a juniper, half-covered the body with panel tarps I carry, and tuned the radio to both the crew frequency and county emergency. Socorro County. This is Unit Meadow 3, Tower Tech on service route. Suspicious traffic near Las Calaveras wash line. Possible false incident with UAV. No injuries, I'm safe for now. The dispatcher sounded like she didn't want my calm to make her seem slow. 3 clear questions. Asked for coordinates. Told me to head out and meet a unit at the Ranch Road junction with US 60. Said a district ranger was also en route. That's simple. Someone comes. Sometimes they really come. On the way, I still saw the drone tail me for a few seconds, keeping high to dodge the turbulence building with the front. Then it vanished, maybe out of battery, maybe someone decided I wasn't worth it. I passed 2 pastures with dry troughs, pale sun cutting the dust haze on the hood. To the right, the cloud's edge scraped the mountains like a blade. I met the patrol car with its discreet beacon flashing behind a rusted post. Stopped, nose to nose, leaving exit clear. The officer already had gloves in pocket and a long stare. "You did right not going down," he said, after hearing everything with the accelerated patience of someone who now had work to do. He asked for dashcam video, markers, notes. I marked the county chart where the drone had swung the wrong way. He spoke in short code over the radio, words that mean nothing to us and everything to those in uniform. They sent me back to town. "Get water. Call your supervisor. We'll call you." I called. Drank. Breathed in a convenience store with 2 pumps and a fridge that roared like a plane. Watched every car without front plates, every window too black, every coincidence in the bottled water line. Not hysterical fear, accounting. Evening came with north wind pushing curtains of dust and a brief cold drizzle, just enough to paste the grit onto everything. Still, the next morning, the sergeant called. We went up there yesterday afternoon, before the drizzle thickened and the dust settled for good. The SUV was a fiberglass shell built on a wooden frame. No engine, no interior. Generic stickers, no VIN. New triangles, fresh tint. We found a car battery with a converter, cables up top, where someone probably had a receiver and gear. Prints of at least 3 people heading for the ridge. Energy drink cans, 2 cigarette butts, a broken handheld radio, a strip of tape still tacky. No clean prints. There was a spare drone in an open case, gone. On the far descent, overlapping tire marks from 2 heavy vehicles, no local tread pattern. He paused briefly, maybe to spare me what came next. This isn't the first time we've seen this kind of setup in remote areas. Sometimes it's theft, sometimes worse. Thanks for reporting. You helped us not add a body to the list. I hung up slowly. The image stuck. An empty shell flashing "help" to no one. A trap built with patience. I thought about places where I'd trusted too fast to help right away, and how many times things worked out only because the world wasn't looking. I rewrote my manual that same day, swapped my old orange flares for a new lot, bought a kit of purple smoke in addition to orange. Each color means something in the air. You start coding even for yourself. Mounted a short siren with megaphone behind the grill, not for speeches, but to break the focus of whoever thinks they hide in the brush. Adjusted dashcam angle and installed another facing the mirrors. Set the GPS to ping every 15 minutes on service routes, sending coordinates to my sister and my supervisor. Started carrying 2 small fluorescent cones I drop by the rear tire. If someone moves them, I know. And I wrote a new rule. If something calls you using technology, you answer with technology, but from distance. If an LED message wants to lead you, throw smoke. If an audio says help without context, record and relay it. If an object, however convincing, doesn't have the where it should, it's not there by chance. I went back to that tower 3 weeks later, under the kind of cutting blue sky only autumn there knows. Swapped the module, measured grounding, left it clean. On the way back, at the rise where the interference began, I stopped the truck, stepped out, breathed the dry air. Different afternoon, different day, same desert. The wind stirred the short juniper branches and pushed my hair across my face. A raven landed on a distant post and made that metallic call that doesn't sound natural. I smiled without wanting to. Whoever built that setup might still be around, or might have gone to build elsewhere. Me, I keep working. That's what I know how to do. You can't promise safety on a map that, from above, is just a sheet of earth pressed down by centuries. What you can do is keep your eye where nobody else looks, check the same scene twice, not let the right in your head push your body into a corner without return. Instinct isn't mystic voice, it's accumulated practice. And that day, on the plateau, practice grabbed me by the collar and put me back in the driver's seat. It was enough. I drive trucks on the last mile of Queens early on Saturdays, when the city still feels like a service corridor. The great thing about my job is that the system tells you everything that matters: delivery window, order ID, photo of the storefront, electronic signature with geolocation. If it doesn't match, it doesn't unload. Simple. This Saturday, the route was clear. 4 stops in Sunnyside and Long Island City. The first, at 7:20 a.m. It was a co-op building on 43rd Avenue. A load of fiber components, sealed boxes, NFC tags, and an ePOD manifest requiring a signature on site. Nothing unusual on paper. I arrived 5 minutes early. It was a drizzly autumn rain, the moisture clinging to my coat. The building had green scaffolding, sidewalk shed, covering the sidewalk, and a metal trash can taking up half the loading and unloading space. The app's photo matched the building number, but it was an old image without the scaffolding. Normal. The city changes its clothes every day. I lowered the liftgate, grabbed the pallet jack, and went to knock on the intercom before opening the trunk. Rule: first, human confirmation, then, door. Before I could touch the panel, a guy came from inside, opening the gate with a half-worn key. A grey sweatshirt under a logoless orange vest, a Knicks cap, a transparent badge with the word SUP printed in home printer font. No name, no photo, no company. "Are you the one delivering internet boxes?" he said, confirming the building number, not the order number. "What's the name on the receipt?" I asked, with the app already open. "The administration. I'm the building manager, but the construction is going well. We need you to go around the side." He pointed to the corner. "There's a temporary ramp. The hall is full of scaffolding." Temporary ramp. 2 words that tickle the handbrake. I looked in the direction he pointed. Sure enough, on the side were 2 metal plates resting on a high curb and a wooden sawhorse. Ramp is generous. It looked like a makeshift move. "Okay," I said. "Sign here so I can register the side dock. Geolocation is on the signature." He backed away a millimeter. His smile was still wide, but his eye flicked to the phone. "Sign later, okay? We're in a hurry. The elevator's out of order. and the electrician only has until 8. Sign first. It's procedure. Another man came in, shorter with a full beard, black nitrile gloves and a paperless clipboard. Let's unload quickly, he said, cutting off the conversation. The ramp's secure, trust me. We'll let you go later. You can trust is the lazy cousin of avoid penalty. It sounds official, it's light. I need the EIN of the building or company that will receive it, I said, and a photo ID of the person signing. The first one shifted his weight. The cadence of his smile lost its rhythm. He offered me a phone number with the prefix 646 scrawled on a sticker on his own badge. It wasn't what I'd asked for. The administration outsourced it, the glove-wearing man explained. The contractor pays. I sign as construction superintendent. I pointed to the opposite side, where the blue Department of Buildings sign hung on the scaffolding. Every scaffold has one. I walked over and read aloud the name of the contractor, the permit number, and the engineer in charge. None of it matched what they'd said. In fact, they hadn't said anything specific. Name of the contractor? I repeated. Yeah. Gotham. The one with the cap stretched. Services. Gotham Services. It could be anything or nothing. So many things are called Gotham that in the end it's nothing. I didn't open the door. I locked the lift gate and returned to the cabin. 2 minutes, I said through the window. I'll let the dispatcher know I'm going to use the side. I pressed the on-hold button on the app and called the dispatcher. On Saturdays, I usually get through to an operator who knows everyone by their first name. They answered on the second ring. Queens 43rd, request 7123H, he said. They're asking for a side ramp and signature later. The building managers don't want geolocation. Short silence on the other end. Keyboard noise. The client's file states that they only accept payments through their own Ramos phone number and only through the front, no side. Today it's marked no receipt Saturday, and the building's official phone number is different. No one authorized it. It won't open. Meanwhile, the two watched me talking quietly from the sidewalk. The one with the glove went to the side and kicked the metal sheets like someone testing a bridge before crossing. He went back and tried another route. Look, bro, if you don't let us get it out here now, the work will be delayed and you'll be left with the burden. The elevator will open in 15 minutes. We'll sign inside. Just open the door. Photo ID and EIN, or signature in the app here. Either way, I replied without raising my voice. He pointed to the domestic badge. This is enough, partner. It's not, and I'm not your partner. The one with the cap got tired of posing. He zipped up his sweatshirt and adjusted his cap. Okay. Call your center. We'll sort it out over there. I already called, and that's when the detail hit. While I was talking to the call center, my app logged an attempt to link external ID on the order. A red warning appeared at the top. Someone using a tablet tried to scan the label's QR code for pre-signature. There's no pre-signature in our workflow. Either they had a photo of an old label, or they copied the pattern and wanted to see if it would stick. I locked the cab, rolled up the window and let the engine hum softly. I turned on my turn signal and moved forward a meter just to get the truck's rear end out of the supposed side access. They took 2 steps together, calculating whether to approach. A lady came out of the building with a dog, surveyed the scene and didn't recognize anyone. I honked the horn briefly, just enough to get the attention of anyone at the window. No one opened it. The two looked at each other. The one with the glove made a never-mind gesture. They turned the corner and disappeared behind the scaffolding, like stage directors clearing the scenery. I waited a full 2 minutes, taking my time, recording everything on my dashcam. Then I rolled up the window all the way, switched on my turn signal, drove half a block, and parked in a space marked Commercial 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. I called the app's emergency number. They flagged it as an attempted intercept event, and per protocol called the NYPD non-emergency. 2 officers from the 108th Precinct arrived on bicycles, which is how the police arrive when it's still early and the city hasn't decided to descend into chaos. I showed them the video and the screen, with the warning about the attempted pre-registration. One of them went to the building with my order number written down and rang the intercom, asking for the supermarket by name. The intercom crackled with a woman's voice saying that the supermarket Ramos only came during the week and that there were no deliveries scheduled for Saturday. The officer wrote it down. You were right not to open it. he said dryly. This has become a trend around here with moving and expensive delivery. They pick it up before the door. I stayed there for another 10 minutes until the dispatcher rescheduled my order. The customer rescheduled for Monday, signing an identity confirmation form. I collected the pallet jack and the trunk locks and headed to the next stop in Long Island City. In the rearview mirror, I saw the nothingness they'd left behind, just the two ownerless metal plates, shining slightly askew. That afternoon, the dispatcher sent a report. They discovered identical attempts on 2 Brooklyn routes the previous week, an unregistered Syndic, a makeshift ramp, insistence on signing later, and a tablet attempting to link orders via QR code. In one case, the driver opened the door, losing half the load to a white van that jumped in to help and disappeared into traffic. The police tracked rental plates, all with fake documents. The building? No work registered that day. The guys used the scaffolding as a screen because there's scaffolding on every corner. Efficiency comes from someone who knows Saturday is a bit blind. I changed my protocol, which was already strict. From Saturday onwards, I'm not allowed to open the door without seeing a photo ID and name matching the one on the registration form. If the building says administration, I ask for an EIN and check it on the public website on my phone. 2 clicks, and you'll see if it exists and the name matches. If they ask for a side entrance, I check the Department of Buildings poster and call the contractor's number listed there, not the one they give me. The app now has a daily password to confirm with the recipient. Without the password, there's no signature. And the geofence is more aggressive, 30-meter tolerance. Beyond that, the ePod won't even open. I bought an extra rear camera with LED, which records the lift gate 24/7. Simple, it works. Some people said I exaggerated. It's just cash. It's only Saturday. The guy seemed cool. Cool is what takes your day. They didn't need weapons, shouting, or a fuss. Just a cheap vest, 2 metal plates, and the rush of others. The only tool I needed was there from the start. The signature they didn't want to give in the right place at the right time. On Monday, I returned to the same building, same parking space. The real super came down with a keychain hanging from it, a badge with the administrator's name, a laminated construction permit, and a smile that asked for nothing. He signed on my phone, his photo, and the geolocation was accurate. We opened the front. We unloaded the boxes in 3 trips and still had time for him to tell me about the 5B resident's dog that barks at the vacuum cleaner. Everything was very normal, just the way it should be.